Listen to me very carefully, because this is not a casual message, and this is not a moment you stumbled into by accident. This is a warning charged with urgency, and if your heart is still beating as you hear these words, it is because God has already stepped into your timeline and is shaking you awake before something irreversible happens. God told me to warn you, you are about to meet someone sent by God very soon. But if you do not stop what you are doing right now, you will either miss them, misunderstand them, or mishandle the very blessing you have been praying for. I am not speaking to entertain you, and I am not speaking to soothe you. I am speaking because there is a spiritual collision approaching your life, and heaven does not whisper when destiny is on the line. God speaks with authority, and when God sends a warning, it is never to frighten you, but to prepare you. Many people ask God for change, ask God for direction, ask God for breakthrough, and then when God begins to rearrange their lives, they resist the very process that will deliver them. You've been asking God to move, but God is asking you to stop. There are moments when God sends opportunities wrapped in people, and there are moments when God sends people carrying assignments that will either elevate you or expose you. The person you are about to meet is not random. They are not ordinary. They are not entering your life for small talk or temporary comfort. They are sent with intention, with timing, and with purpose. But hear this clearly, divine encounters require divine readiness. God will not violate your will, and God will not force alignment on a heart that is committed to disorder. God showed me that many who are listening right now are spiritually busy, but inwardly distracted. You are moving, but not focused. You are speaking, but not listening. You are praying, but not obeying. And because of this, God says, stop. Stop chasing validation from people who were never assigned to understand you. Stop replaying old wounds as if they still have authority over your future. Stop entertaining habits that weaken your discernment. Stop negotiating with behaviors that drain your spirit while asking God to strengthen you. The person God is sending will not look like your fantasy, but they will align with your calling. They will not always speak softly, but they will speak truthfully. They will not flatter your comfort, but they will challenge your stagnation. And if you are still addicted to approval, if you are still living for applause, if you are still afraid to be corrected, you will label this divine connection as an attack and push away what God has sent to advance you. God is not sending this person to fix you. God is sending them to confront you. There is a difference. Fixing soothes the surface. Confrontation reshapes the foundation. God has seen you cry in secret, and God has seen you smile in public while breaking inside. God has counted every silent prayer you whispered when no one else believed in you. And now, God says the season of isolation is ending, but the season of accountability is beginning. Stop pretending that delay is protection. Some of you have called fear wisdom for too long. You have called hesitation discernment, when it was really avoidance. God says, stop hiding behind spiritual language while disobeying clear instruction. The person coming into your life will see through your excuses, not because they are judgmental, but because they are an instrument of clarity. Understand this. God sends people in seasons, and every season demands a different posture. There was a season when you needed healing, and God gave you rest. There was a season when you needed strength, and God gave you endurance. But now is a season of alignment, and alignment requires surrender. You cannot receive new direction while gripping old control. You cannot walk into a God-ordained connection while clinging to God-rejected patterns. God is not angry with you, but God is firm with you. Love does not always sound gentle. Sometimes love sounds urgent because time is sensitive. You are closer than you think, but closer does not mean ready. Readiness is not about perfection, it is about willingness. And God says the one thing you must stop doing is resisting transformation while demanding results. The person God is sending will speak into areas you have avoided. They will question cycles you have normalized. They will recognize potential you have downplayed. And if you are still addicted to chaos, if you still feel uncomfortable in peace, if you still believe struggle is your identity, you will reject stability when it arrives wearing the face of a messenger. God says, stop self-sabotaging moments of favor. Every time God begins to elevate you, you retreat into familiarity. Because familiarity feels safer than growth. But safety is not the same as obedience. God did not preserve you to keep you small. God did not rescue you to leave you unchanged. God did not carry you this far for you to stop one step before alignment. You have been praying for connection, but God says, stop entertaining counterfeit relationships. You have been asking God for guidance, but God says, stop ignoring correction. You have been asking God for clarity, but God says, stop feeding confusion with compromise. The person coming into your life will require maturity, not emotion. They will require honesty, not performance. They will require you to stand in truth, not hide behind image. God showed me that some of you are still speaking death over your own future with careless words. Stop saying you are broken when God says you are being built. Stop saying it will never change when God says it is already shifting. Stop saying you are alone when God is orchestrating connection behind the scenes. Words create atmosphere, and atmosphere determines reception. If you create an atmosphere of doubt, you will suffocate divine opportunity. This warning is not because you are failing. It is because you are about to succeed in ways that require discipline you have not yet practiced. God is not punishing you. God is positioning you. And positioning often feels uncomfortable, because it demands that you let go of what once defined you. The person God is sending will not need you to impress them. They will need you to be real. They will not be moved by your titles, your stories, or your achievements. They will be moved by your obedience. If you are still performing instead of transforming, you will exhaust yourself trying to maintain an image while missing an assignment. God says, stop delaying obedience until conditions feel perfect. Obedience creates the condition. Faith moves first, clarity follows. The reason things have felt heavy is because you have been carrying what God never asked you to hold. Release control, release resentment, release the need to be understood by everyone. The person coming into your life will understand you in ways that free you, but only if you stop defending the version of yourself that God is trying to outgrow. There is urgency in the spirit because timing matters. Destiny is precise. Being early is just as harmful as being late. God says this encounter is near and preparation cannot wait. Stop numbing yourself with distractions. Stop silencing conviction with entertainment. Stop calling discipline restriction when it is actually protection. You are not being corrected because you are weak. You are being corrected because you are trusted. God corrects those who are chosen for responsibility. The next level of your life requires restraint, humility, and clarity. The person God sends will amplify what is already in you. If you are bitter, bitterness will multiply. If you are teachable, wisdom will increase. If you are defensive, conflict will grow. If you are humble, purpose will accelerate. God says, stop replaying old narratives. You are no longer who you were when you were wounded. You are no longer who you were when you were abandoned. You are no longer who you were when you failed. Growth has happened quietly, and now alignment is coming visibly. Do not disqualify yourself with outdated self-perception. This message is a warning because warnings are mercies. God warns before God reveals. God corrects before God connects. God aligns before God assigns. You are about to step into a divine intersection where your choices will determine whether this encounter becomes a doorway or a detour. Stop testing God while ignoring instruction. Stop asking for signs while dismissing discipline. Stop praying for change while protecting comfort. The person coming into your life will recognize the hand of God on you. but they will also recognize areas that must be surrendered. Do not mistake confrontation for rejection. Sometimes God sends people who love you enough to tell you the truth you have been avoiding. You have survived storms that should have destroyed you, not because of luck, but because God preserved you for purpose. Preservation comes with expectation. God expects growth from survival. God expects wisdom from endurance. God expects obedience from revelation. I'm speaking with urgency because delay is dangerous in this season. What? Why? Oh, you tolerate now will determine what you encounter next. Stop tolerating inconsistency. Stop tolerating half commitment. Stop tolerating inner resistance. God is about to introduce you to someone who will speak life into your future, but life can only grow where there is space. Make room. Clear the clutter. Quiet the noise. Align your heart. The warning is not to scare you. It is to steady you. God is involved. God is intentional. God is precise. And God does not waste encounters. This is not about fear. This is about readiness. This is not about condemnation. This is about correction. This is not about loss. This is about preparation. You are closer than you realize. And heaven is watching how you respond to this warning, because obedience now will determine recognition later. God says stop, because what is coming requires you whole, attentive, and aligned. God says there is another thing you must stop, and this one is subtle, because it hides behind intelligence and past experience. Stop assuming you already know how God will move. Familiarity dulls expectation, and expectation is the doorway through which divine encounters enter. When you decide you already understand the pattern, you stop watching for the interruption. God rarely repeats methods, even when the purpose is the same. The person coming into your life will not arrive the way you predicted. And if you cling to your assumptions, you will overlook divine intention standing right in front of you. There are many listening who have become experts in survival, but novices in trust. You learned how to protect yourself when people disappointed you, and that skill saved you then. But now God says it is limiting you. Stop armoring your heart against what God is sending to heal you. Discernment does not mean suspicion. Wisdom does not mean distance. God is not asking you to be careless, but God is asking you to be open, because what is coming requires receptivity, not resistance. God says some of you are still living as if scarcity is permanent. You ration joy, you ration hope, you ration belief. You expect loss before you experience gain. But the person God is sending carries abundance of perspective, abundance of truth, abundance of alignment. If you are still thinking small, you will try to control what God is trying to expand. Stop shrinking your expectations to match your past. Your past was not the blueprint, it was the classroom. There is also a warning about speech. Stop speaking prematurely. Some of you talk too soon, share too much, reveal before fruit has formed. God says not every movement needs commentary. Silence is not secrecy, silence is incubation. The person God is sending will recognize the weight of restraint. And if you have already scattered your vision through careless words, you will struggle to steward what arrives. Guard your mouth, not out of fear, but out of reverence for what God is building. God says, stop mistaking urgency for anxiety. This warning is urgent, but it is not frantic. Anxiety rushes without direction. Divine urgency moves with clarity. If you feel panic, pause. If you feel pressured, breathe. God does not drive through fear, God leads through conviction. The coming encounter will require calm strength, not emotional volatility. If you are still ruled by impulse, you will misinterpret guidance as threat. There are some listening who have normalized inner chaos. You function well in crisis, but you feel lost in order. God says, stop identifying with turmoil. Peace is not boring, peace is powerful. Stability is not stagnation, stability is strength. The person God is sending will bring structure to areas you have left undefined. And if you still believe disorder is who you are, you will resist the very alignment that frees you. God is also addressing integrity. Stop separating who you are privately from who you present publicly. Alignment attracts alignment. The closer you get to divine connection, the more transparency matters. God sees the hidden corners, not to shame you, but to refine you. The person coming into your life will value truth over image. And if you are still curating appearances, you will feel exposed instead of supported. God says stop rehearsing rejection before it happens. Anticipated pain can sabotage present opportunity. You prepare for disappointment as a defense, but that defense blocks intimacy. Not everyone who enters your life is coming to wound you. Some are sent to walk with you sharp and stand with you. But if you greet them with suspicion instead of discernment, you will create distance where God intended partnership. There is also a call to stop delaying decisions you already know you must make. Obedience delayed is obedience denied. God has already spoken to you about certain habits, certain environments, certain attachments. You ask for confirmation, and this message is part of it. The person God is sending will arrive in the context of those decisions. If you remain undecided, you will feel conflicted instead of confident. God says, stop carrying guilt that has already served its purpose. Conviction is meant to correct, not to condemn. Once correction has been received, guilt becomes a chain, not a teacher. The person coming into your life will see who you are becoming, not who you were. If you keep introducing yourself through regret, you will struggle to step into the future God has prepared. Another warning is about timing. Stop rushing ahead of God out of impatience. Impatience creates imitations. When you move before alignment, you settle for substitutes. God says what is coming cannot be rushed because it must be sustained. Speed without foundation leads to collapse. Trust the pace, trust the process. The encounter will happen at the moment your character can carry its weight. God says stop confusing intensity with depth. Loud emotion is not the same as strong faith. Depth is built quietly, consistently, faithfully. The person God is sending will value depth over drama. And if you are still feeding off emotional highs, you will find stability unfamiliar. Let God deepen you so you can recognize substance when it arrives. There's also a call to stop isolating yourself under the name of independence. Independence protected you when you were alone, but now God says interdependence is required. No one fulfills purpose alone. God designed growth to happen through connection. The person coming into your life is not meant to replace God, but to reflect alignment with God. If you refuse connection, you refuse multiplication. God says, stop judging the vessel. You have learned to categorize people quickly based on tone, background, or delivery. But God often hides instruction in unexpected containers. The ones sent to you may not fit your preferences, but they will fit your purpose. If you dismiss too quickly, you will miss wisdom disguised as difference. There is a warning about pride disguised as self-protection. Stop insisting you are fine when you are still being shaped. Humility is not weakness. Humility is accuracy. The person God sends will recognize humility as readiness. If you are still defending yourself at every point of growth, you will exhaust yourself resisting refinement. God says, stop neglecting gratitude. Gratitude tunes your perception. It sharpens your awareness. It positions you to recognize divine movement. When you overlook what God has already done, you dull your sensitivity to what God is doing now. The coming encounter will require a thankful heart, because gratitude creates honor, and honor sustains connection. You are being warned because God values what is about to happen. Heaven does not issue warnings for insignificant events. This meeting has consequence. It will mark a shift. It will expose alignment. It will accelerate direction. But preparation determines outcome. Stop treating this season casually. Casualness is costly when destiny is near. God says, stop measuring yourself by people who are not assigned to your path. Comparison distorts calling. The person God is sending is aligned to your assignment, not someone else's. If you are still looking sideways, you will miss what is in front of you. Focus creates recognition. There is also a call to stop resisting rest. Weariness clouds discernment. Exhaustion blurs judgment. God is not impressed by burnout. Strength is preserved through rest. The coming encounter will require clarity, and clarity requires a rested spirit. Slow down so you can see clearly. God says, stop feeding doubt with unchecked thoughts. Thoughts become beliefs, and beliefs become behavior. You cannot entertain disbelief and expect confidence. The person God sends will speak confirmation, but confirmation cannot land where doubt dominates. Discipline your inner dialogue. This warning continues because God is patient but precise. God prepares thoroughly because God values longevity. What is coming is not temporary. It is not seasonal. It is foundational, and foundations require excavation. Some things must be removed so others can be built. You are not behind. You are not late. You are being aligned. But alignment requires cooperation. Stop fighting the very process designed to protect what is about to be entrusted to you. Stop clinging to comfort when calling demands courage. God is near. Movement is near. Connection is near. And preparation is now, because the one God is sending will arrive into the atmosphere you are creating. And if you want clarity, peace, strength, and alignment to greet them, then stop resisting the work that God is doing in you right now as you listen, as you breathe, as you feel conviction rising, because this moment itself is part of the preparation, and what you do next will echo into the meeting that is already on its way, and into the words that will be spoken, and the decisions that will be made, and the direction that will be revealed when the timing aligns and the heart is ready and the posture is surrendered and the warning has been honored, and the movement of God continues through obedience that has not yet fully formed but is already unfolding within you as the process continues and continues and continues. God is also addressing perception. Because how you see determines how you receive. Stop interpreting everything through the lens of past disappointment. When you do that, even mercy feels like a threat. God is doing a new thing, but new things cannot be recognized by old eyesight. Some of you are still scanning the horizon for danger instead of watching for direction. Vigilance has its place, but anticipation must now replace fear. The person God is sending will not come to repeat your history. They will come to interrupt it. There is a deep matter of alignment between belief and behavior that God is bringing into the light. Stop saying you trust God while living as if everything depends solely on you. Trust is not passive, but it is surrendered. When you trust God, you stop manipulating outcomes. You stop forcing doors. You stop rehearsing control. The coming encounter will require trust that manifests in patience, in listening, and in restraint. If you are still gripping outcomes tightly, you will struggle to recognize guidance when it comes wrapped in surrender. God says, stop underestimating the power of timing. You have tried to revive things God allowed to end, and you have ignored things God is trying to begin. Discernment is not only about knowing what to avoid, it is about knowing what to embrace. The person God is sending is arriving in a precise moment, not early, not late. If you are still emotionally anchored to expired seasons, you will be spiritually distracted when alignment appears. There is also a warning about motivation. Stop doing the right things for the wrong reasons. God sees the heart beneath the action. Obedience done to impress people carries no weight in the realm of destiny. The encounter coming will be sensitive to motive. Purity of intention will matter more than performance. If you are still driven by recognition rather than reverence, the connection will feel shallow instead of transformative. God says, stop neglecting inner discipline while focusing on external progress. Character is the infrastructure of calling. Without it, growth collapses under its own weight. The person God is sending will respect discipline, consistency, and integrity more than charisma. If you have been relying on talent while neglecting formation, this season is calling you higher. There is a call to stop entertaining inner division. You cannot be double-minded and spiritually decisive at the same time. God is a God of clarity, not confusion. The coming encounter will require decisiveness of heart. If you are still wavering between obedience and comfort, you will feel tension instead of peace when alignment arrives. God is also addressing the way you handle correction. Stop taking correction as an attack. Correction is an investment. God corrects what God intends to use. The person God is sending will not flatter your ego, but they will refine your purpose. If you resist correction, you resist growth. If you welcome it, you accelerate maturity. There is a warning about emotional memory. Stop storing pain as identity. Pain is an experience, not a definition. God does not introduce your future through the vocabulary of your wounds. Healing has already begun, even if you do not feel finished. The one God is sending will meet you in motion, not in perfection. Do not pause your progress waiting to feel complete. God says stop demanding certainty before obedience. Certainty is often the reward of obedience, not the requirement. Faith moves without full visibility. The coming encounter will require steps taken before clarity is complete. If you insist on seeing everything first, you will miss the moment that required movement. There is also a call to stop ignoring the quiet instructions. God does not only speak through dramatic moments, God often guides through gentle conviction. You already know some of what you must change, release, or realign. This message is not revealing new information, it is reinforcing known truth. The person God is sending will confirm what God has already whispered. God says, stop allowing emotional fatigue to dull your spiritual sensitivity. Weariness makes everything feel heavy, including blessings. Rest is not withdrawal, rest is recalibration. If you do not rest, you will misinterpret peace as emptiness and alignment as pressure. The coming encounter will require alertness, not exhaustion. There is a warning about expectations placed on people. Stop expecting humans to fulfill roles only God can fill. The person God is sending is a vessel, not a replacement for divine guidance. If you load them with unrealistic expectation, you will strain the connection. Honor the assignment without idolizing the messenger. God is also correcting this way you handle silence. Stop assuming silence means absence. Sometimes God is silent because God is working beneath the surface. The soil is quiet while roots grow. The coming encounter has been prepared in silence. If you mistake silence for delay, you will grow impatient with timing that is actually precise. God says, stop rehearsing worst-case scenarios. Preparation is wise, pessimism is destructive. When you expect failure, you subconsciously prepare for it. The person God is sending will carry hope, not fear. If you have trained your mind to expect collapse, stability will feel foreign. There is a call to stop living reactively. Reaction is driven by circumstance. Response is guided by conviction. God is shaping you into someone who responds with wisdom, not impulse. The coming encounter will test this. If you are still reactive, you will feel shaken. If you are responsive, you will feel anchored. God is also addressing consistency. Stop being devoted only when it feels rewarding. Faithfulness is proven in the unseen, in the ordinary, in the quiet obedience that no one applauds. The person God is sending will value consistency because consistency builds trust. Inconsistency breeds confusion. God says, stop measuring readiness by emotion. Feeling ready is not the same as being prepared. Preparation is built through obedience over time. The encounter coming will not wait for emotional certainty. It will align with spiritual readiness. There is a warning about internal alignment. Stop saying yes outwardly while resisting inwardly. God desires integrity of heart. Partial agreement creates internal conflict. The person God is sending will sense alignment, not just hear words. If your heart and actions are divided, the connection will feel strained. God says, stop romanticizing struggle. Struggle taught you lessons, but it is not meant to be permanent. Growth leads to ease, not because life becomes effortless, but because wisdom reduces unnecessary friction. The coming encounter will feel smoother than past relationships. Do not distrust it simply because it lacks chaos. There is also a call to stop ignoring boundaries. Boundaries are not walls, they are guides. God uses boundaries to protect purpose. The person God is sending will respect boundaries, but you must establish them first. Without boundaries, connection becomes confusion. God is patient, but this is a decisive season. Preparation is happening now, even as you listen. Every conviction you feel is an invitation, not an accusation. Every warning is an act of care. God is aligning you for something meaningful, something weighty, something that requires you present, attentive, humble, and willing to stop what hinders so you can recognize what is sent and move in step with the unfolding direction that continues to draw closer and closer as obedience deepens and awareness sharpens and the atmosphere within you shifts toward readiness and the movement of God continues forward without pause. Use as this moment carries momentum into the encounter that approaches with purpose still unfolding and unfolding and unfolding. God is now addressing authority because you cannot steward divine encounters if you do not understand spiritual authority. Stop resisting responsibility while asking for influence. Authority is not about control over others, it is about mastery over self. The person God is sending will recognize whether you rule your inner world or are ruled by it. If emotions still command your decisions, you will feel threatened by guidance. But if discipline governs your response, you will recognize instruction as empowerment. God says, stop underestimating the importance of obedience in small things. You have been waiting for a major assignment, but you have ignored minor instructions. Faithfulness in the unseen prepares you for recognition in the visible. The person God is sending will notice patterns, not promises. They will observe how you handle what seems insignificant. Small obediences accumulate into spiritual credibility. There is also a call to stop confusing kindness with agreement. Not everyone sent by God will affirm every choice you make. Correction does not cancel care. The person God sends may challenge assumptions you have defended for years. If you require constant affirmation to feel secure, you will struggle to receive wisdom that sharpens rather than soothes. God says, stop idolizing comfort. Comfort has its place, but it is not the goal. Grow out stretches, and stretching is not cruelty, it is capacity building. The coming encounter will stretch you intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually. If you retreat at the first sign of discomfort, you will abandon expansion for familiarity. There is a warning about emotional dependency. Stop leaning on people to supply what only God can sustain. Healthy connection flows from fullness, not emptiness. The person God is sending is meant to walk with you, not carry you. If you arrive depleted and expect them to restore you, the relationship will begin under strain. God is also addressing listening. Stop listening only to respond. Listening is an act of humility. The person God sends may speak in ways that require patience to understand. If you are already forming replies instead of receiving truth, you will miss nuance that carries direction. God says stop interpreting resistance as rejection. Sometimes resistance is refinement. When God shapes you, it may feel like pressure, but pressure produces clarity. The coming encounter may surface resistance within you, not because it is wrong, but because it is stretching areas that have never been exercised. There is a call to stop rehearsing your resume. You do not need to convince what God has already commissioned. The person God is sending will discern substance beyond explanation. Over-explaining often reveals insecurity. Trust that God has already gone ahead of you. God says stop postponing joy until everything is perfect. Joy is not a reward for completion. It is fuel for endurance. The atmosphere you carry matters. The person God is sending will respond to authenticity, not heaviness disguised as seriousness. Let joy coexist with responsibility. There is also a warning about unresolved anger. Stop carrying bitterness under the name of boundaries. Boundaries protect, bitterness poisons. The coming encounter will require emotional clarity. If anger still colors your perception, you will misjudge intent. God is addressing adaptability. Stop resisting change once it begins. Transition feels unstable because identity is shifting. The person God sends may arrive during a transition, not after it. Do not wait to feel settled before you move forward. Movement often creates stability. God says stop confusing familiarity with safety. Familiar patterns may feel secure, but they often keep you confined. God sometimes sends people who disrupt comfort to introduce growth. If you cling to what you know simply because it is known, you will reject what is sent to advance you. There is a call to stop measuring progress by speed. Depth takes time. Rushed connections lack foundation. The encounter coming will unfold gradually, layer by layer. Impatience will try to rush intimacy, but wisdom allows trust to develop organically. God says, stop doubting your capacity to grow. Humility acknowledges need for growth, but unbelief denies potential. God would not send this person if growth were impossible. Believe that transformation is ongoing and attainable. There is also a warning about secrecy. Stop hiding what God is already exposing. Confession is not weakness, it is alignment. The person God sends will value transparency. Hidden things create distance. Truth creates trust. God is correcting the way you interpret opposition. Stop assuming resistance means wrong direction. Opposition often accompanies alignment. The closer you move toward purpose, the louder internal resistance may become. Do not retreat simply because it feels intense. God says stop postponing forgiveness. Forgiveness is not approval, it is release. Unforgiveness anchors you to the past. The person God sends will encounter the version of you that forgiveness creates, not the version bitterness preserves. There is a call to stop treating preparation as punishment. Preparation is proof of value. God prepares what God intends to use significantly. This season of warning is evidence of investment, not rejection. God is also addressing consistency of belief. Stop professing faith while feeding doubt. What you consume shapes what you expect. Guard your inputs. The person God sends will amplify whatever dominates your inner life. God says stop resisting humility disguised as fear of vulnerability. Vulnerability is not exposure without wisdom. It is openness with discernment. The coming encounter will deepen trust, but only if you allow yourself to be seen beyond surface strength. There is a warning about distraction. Stop scattering your focus across too many directions. Purpose requires concentration. The person God is sending aligns with your assignment, not your diversions. Clarity will help you recognize alignment. God says, stop waiting for permission to become who you are called to be. Approval is not prerequisite for obedience. The encounter coming will affirm direction, not initiate it. Step into alignment now. There is also a call to stop romanticizing isolation. Solitude has seasons, but prolonged isolation breeds distortion. God uses people to sharpen perspective. The person God sends will reflect aspects of truth you cannot see alone. God is preparing you to recognize substance over style. Stop being impressed by surface. Depth often speaks quietly. The coming encounter may lack spectacle but carry weight. God says, stop confusing gentleness with weakness. Strength does not always roar. The person God sends may lead with calm authority. Learn to recognize strength that does not need volume. There is a warning about unresolved fear of loss. Stop guarding against loss so tightly that you prevent gain. Risk is inherent in growth. The person God sends is not guaranteed to be permanent, but they are guaranteed to be purposeful. God is also addressing teachability. Stop assuming maturity means you no longer need instruction. Growth continues at every level. The encounter coming will require openness to learn, even in areas you consider masked, red. God says, stop anchoring identity in roles. Roles change, purpose remains. The person God sends will connect with who you are becoming, not only what you do. There is a call to stop interpreting stillness as stagnation. Sometimes God pauses movement to deepen roots. The coming encounter will draw from roots formed in stillness. Trust the unseen work. God is patient, but alignment is active. Every adjustment you make now refines the atmosphere you carry. The person God is sending will step into that atmosphere, and what they encounter in you will shape how the connection unfolds. As readiness continues to deepen, and awareness continues to sharpen, and obedience continues to form quietly and steadily, as God's movement advances with intention and care, and the unfolding purpose draws nearer with every surrendered response and every corrected posture and every moment of willingness that allows preparation to complete its work, as the warning continues to echo and guide and steady and prepare what is already on its way. Now hear this with the full weight of your spirit, because this is the moment where warning becomes decision and awareness becomes action. God has not spoken all these words to inform you. God has spoken to transform you. This is not a message to admire, analyze, or delay. It is a summons. God is calling you to stand still long enough to examine your heart, your habits, your posture, and your obedience. Not with shame, not with fear, but with courage. Because age is not the absence of weakness. It is the willingness to align despite it. Look honestly at your life and ask yourself what God has been asking you to stop, that you have postponed, excused, or justified. Ask yourself where you have been resistant instead of receptive, guarded instead of guided, comfortable instead of obedient. God is not asking you to become someone else. God is asking you to become fully who you were always meant to be. Renewal begins when you stop defending what God is correcting. This is your call to action. Pause, not in avoidance, but in reverence. Quiet the noise that has crowded your discernment. Lay down the patterns that no longer serve purpose. Release the fears that have spoken louder than faith. Choose alignment over familiarity. Choose obedience over delay. Choose humility over pride. Choose depth over appearance. Choose God over control. Let this be the moment you renew your purpose, not as a vague intention, but as a living commitment. Wake up your spirit to attentiveness. Train your heart toward surrender. Discipline your thoughts toward truth. Prepare yourself not with anxiety, but with clarity. God is near. Guidance is near. Alignment is near. And your response now matters more than you realize. Do not leave this moment unchanged. Let conviction turn into correction. Let awareness turn into obedience. Let warning turn into wisdom. Walk closer to God, not later, not gradually, but deliberately. Step forward with a heart that is open, a mind that is teachable, and a spirit that is ready. Because when you walk in alignment, you walk with confidence. And when you walk with God, every step carries purpose, every pause carries meaning, and every encounter unfolds exactly as it was intended.